to you today about something else, about something you're all familiar with, social media, and mental well-being, and how to be in control of all that. There won't be any jumping, singing, so just sit back and relax. And I wanted to start with a true story related to that. Last month, Harvard, maybe you've heard of this, Harvard revoked the acceptance letters of 10 prospective students over offensive posts that they had made in a private Facebook group that they had set up. The students were exchanging memes that mocked child abuse and sexual assault and racial and ethnic groups, so really ugly stuff. And basically they got kicked out of the university before they even had a chance to attend, actually. And I'm not here to debate the university's decision on that, although I absolutely agree with it. But I'm giving this as an example and a true story and some lessons that I want to highlight out of this. Now, the first lesson I think that, and actually a lot of experts drew that lesson out on social media as well, is that actually nothing you say online could stay private. You know, even if you say things online with the expectation that they would be private, as happened in this case because it was a private Facebook group, it's very easy for comments that you say to then go public. And you know, it happened here very easily, actually, without that being the intention. And from that comes the second lesson, is that social media is real life, okay? What you say on social media has real life repercussions and often unintended ones, unintended consequences. Again, that lesson was a little bit lost on these students, obviously, but the consequences were quite severe for all of them. Now, these are not new lessons. They have been repeated again and again a lot, but they still need reminding. And actually, a lot of universities, a lot of career coaches, a lot of communication experts have been quite active in the past 5 years and even more of giving similar lessons to young people of how to use social media in a way that doesn't ruin their futures, basically. And oftentimes what they say is that young people should communicate on social media in a way that creates their personal brand or enhances their personal brand, okay? So using social media to brand yourself. And so my question for you today, just something to think about, is that a good approach to be using social media for? To create a brand or to enhance your brand? And my personal answer to this is it depends, all right? Now, some of you may be academics. Those of you who've talked to academics a while, you may know that this answer, it depends, is our favorite answer for almost anything. But it's true, and I'll explain why I say that. In this case, it depends because, say, if you're using Twitter in a public way, all right, publicly, and you want to establish yourself as a knowledgeable blogger about music or fashion or sport, that's a very obvious and legitimate way of you branding yourself as such, right? You're establishing a network, you're creating contacts, and that's great. Or you could be using Instagram to promote your cooking website. A lot of people do that. And that, again, is a very obvious way of you promoting a product or yourself. But how about Facebook, all right? And I do a lot of my research focuses on Facebook because it's, as you know, the most widespread of the platforms and the most mainstream one. And it has biggest penetration in a lot of different markets and audiences. And as such, it presents unique challenges because, first of all, communication there has more expectations of privacy than on some of the other platforms, like on Twitter or Instagram, right? And you also, another challenge for Facebook is that you get a lot of different audiences thrown together from your lives, okay? So probably all of you have your parents on Facebook, right? Some of you maybe even your grandparents, if they're adventurous. You have your classmates from high school, your former classmates. You have your current colleagues from university. You may have some of your exes on Facebook as well, the nice ones. There's some research on that as well. We didn't go into that because it's a whole other field. But you also probably have there some professors or some future employers, people that you will be in contact with as your public persona, right? So you have this really strange amalgamation of your private life and your public life, all right, on Facebook. And again, you have this higher expectation of privacy probably compared to some of the other platforms. So how do you communicate there on Facebook? And how do you do this in a way that suits you and others? Well, research shows that some people actually do take the same approach as those branding guidelines suggest. And basically, they create this persona online, okay? So there's research actually that shows that a lot of young men tend to pose alone in their profile pictures as a way to enhance their romantic availability, to show that they're single and available. And a lot of women actually tend to untag photos that they find unflattering of themselves, that don't succumb to Western standards of beauty. And some go even further and actively enhance their images before they put them online. There's now apps for that as well that can instantly, you take a selfie and there's apps that can instantly slim you up with 5 kilos, with 10 kilos, or whatever. And then you post a picture online. So it's very easy nowadays to create this other persona online that's slimmer or fitter or maybe lighter or darker than your actual skin color and overall more desirable to yourself and maybe others. But that's not your real persona, right? That's not who you actually are in real life. And so this branding of yourself on Facebook is actually quite different from those other platforms because the audiences here may not be expecting this, okay? They may not be using this platform with the expectation that you're changing things about yourself before you post them online, all right? And again, you have this mix of your public life and your private life on Facebook, which is different from some of the other platforms, all right? And so remember when I said earlier that lesson 2 from the Harvard story that social media use could have serious unintended consequences. And it's the case for Facebook as well. And that's where most of the research has focused on, research on social media. So some of these consequences have to do with body image concerns. So more time spent on Facebook has been shown to drive more comparisons, more body image concerns, more attention to physical appearances of others, okay? And, which is even more disturbing, more disordered eating behaviors, all right? Also, a lot of research has been done on the connection, and there is a connection between use of social media and Facebook in particular, and depression and anxiety, all right? And also self-esteem and life satisfaction, okay? But things are not so black and white in this as well. They're a lot more nuanced. I mean, the thing here to remember is that, and a lot of the time, this research has looked at how much time and typically student populations are studied, but how much time young people spend online, on social media, okay? And so this is very often proportionate to the consequences of that use, all right? So the time that you spend online matters, the amount of time you spend and the frequency of visiting. But also, it's not so simple than that. And again, things are a little bit more nuanced. And the nuances come from how you spend your time online, what you do when you are on Facebook, all right? And so there has been some research on that as well. And what you do really, really matters and can change those consequences that I just talked about. So back to that research about depression and anxiety and Facebook, yes, that I mentioned, the connection between that. I did tell you there's a connection, but I did not tell you what was the actual connection, right? How the two things are related. And in fact, there's a bit of good news coming up here. So it's not all doom and gloom, and social media is not all bad for you, right? So we're moving into the positive, the positive part of this talk. So there was actually, last year, there was a study that came out that was a review of all these other studies that have been done, 70 studies that have been done on the connections between social media and depression and anxiety. And what they found was that people who had positive interactions online and who had support and social connectedness actually had lower levels of depression and anxiety. okay? And people who use their time on social media to compare themselves a lot and who had negative interactions, they showed higher levels of depression and anxiety, okay? And also, social media use was related to less loneliness and higher self-esteem, okay? And just this year came out this interesting study that asked people what they were looking at online, what types of pictures, and then also asked them about certain psychological questions. And it found that when people were looking at selfies online, we all take selfies, yes, and we post them. I was at the bar last night writing this, and the couple next to me were taking selfies. I'm like, there we go. It happens all the time. And they were a middle-aged couple, okay? So we're not talking just young people here doing this. But this research showed that people who were looking at selfies online actually did have lower levels of self-esteem and life satisfaction. But people who were looking at group pictures, or they call them groupies, had higher levels of self-esteem and life satisfaction, okay? So the bottom line here is that what you do online matters, okay? So it's not just about how much time you spend there, but it's what type of content you read, what type of content you share, how you interact with people on your social media networks, and also what type of people you choose to associate with, all right? And I'm a media scholar myself, and I have to say in social media more than in any of the other media revolutions before, you are in control, okay? More so than it was before with television or with radio or any of the traditional media. So with social media, you are in control of your experiences there, okay? And so this is my last bit here. How do you stay in control of social media while still having fun, all right? So social media is all about pleasurable, fun experiences. That's why we all do it, right? That's one of the main positives of these platforms. But having some control over your experiences, I think, is very important as well. So before I finish, I want to give you four little tips on how you can do that, okay? While still having fun, of course. My first tip is to stay real, okay? Be real and be yourself online, okay? Not your smarter self, not your funnier self, not your political self, and offline you completely don't care about this, right? But your real self, the self that you are when you're off social media. And related to that, don't compare yourself to others. This is very important because a lot of the research shows that comparisons are actually some of the main mechanisms for the negative influences of social media. So this constant comparison in our head with what others are posting and what they look like and what their lives are like and what their kids are doing, this actually has a lot to do with what we take out of that experience, okay? Number two is have a filter on what you post online. Also very important. So, and this is where a lot of the problems come in with bullying, with trolling. A lot of the dark sides of our experiences are because some people don't have a filter on what they say online, okay? But remember, social media is real life, okay? And so what you say online matters. And so I do this sometimes myself. Before I post something, I ask myself, if that person were sitting next to me face to face, would I say that thing? And if the answer is no, I don't post it, okay? My third tip is know your audience online, okay? And this is the #1 rule for good communicators. They always know who they're speaking to. But what I mean here, especially for Facebook, is, again, you have this mix of your private life and your public life, okay? And so very often, young people end up saying things, oh, you had so much fun during the weekend, all the details about that, and so on and so forth, to the audiences that don't necessarily need to know that, okay? And so there are now the technical ways, Facebook offers the way to actually split up your audiences into smaller groups and then be more targeted in what you say and who you say it to. And so that could be a good way of both have fun online and connect with your significant others and with your friends, but without ruining any potential work relations later on, or without creating this impression, this wrong impression maybe of yourself, okay? And the last one, how do you really show that you're in control the best way? By giving something up, wishfully, Yes? So sometimes the best thing to do is just to take a break from social media. I was at a brainstorming session a few months ago about potential campaigns for mental health well-being on Twitter. And half of the ideas that came up had to do with taking a break from Twitter, right? So sometimes the best thing to do and to actually show to yourself that you can control this beast is just to give it up for a selected amount of time and see how that feels, okay? So, I mean, the bottom line is social media is complicated and nuanced, and it is what you make of it, just like life itself. Thank you.